What's up, guys? Mickle here, and for the first time in 3 years, we can officially say that the Ripple SEC case is over. In this video, I'm going to talk about what just happened because this was completely unexpected and is going to have massive implications for Ripple and XRP going forward. I'm going to talk about whether or not this is a good or bad thing. There's actually some people out there saying that this could potentially be a trap by the SEC. We're going to talk about that and everything you need to know about what just happened because this is absolutely wild. Like always, guys, your support means so much to this channel. If you enjoy these videos, make sure to take a quick second to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It's really going to help me out so much. Also, if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP or the Flare token, make sure to check out my favorite exchange uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So guys, let's jump right into the video, and for those of you guys who don't know what's going on, who thought this case was already over, what am I talking about? Just so you know, essentially part of this case was supposed to go to trial later next year. It would have been like a year and a half away, and essentially that would be the SEC taking Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson to trial on whether or not Brad and Chris knew they were selling a security when they sold their XRP. Now, if you've been following this channel, you would know that I said that the SEC had absolutely zero chance of winning this charge. Essentially, how could Brad and Chris have known they were selling XRP if XRP itself wasn't a security? The charge didn't make any sense, and a lot of very smart lawyers in this community were saying that the SEC was essentially sinking their own case by taking Brad and Chris to trial. Now, with all that said, the SEC has made a ton of really dumb decisions over the course of this case for the past 3 years, and therefore it was really hard to predict them actually making a logical decision. But the SEC actually did and dropped the charges against Brad and Chris. Because of that, there is no trial. Because of that, this case is essentially all wrapped up and over with. There is nothing left in this case. The SEC has dropped all remaining charges against Brad and Chris. Now, obviously, this is super exciting because for the first time in 3 years, this case is over. We know what happened. Ripple sold securities to institutions, but the rest of their sales weren't securities. Only a small subset of the XRP Ripple was selling qualified as a securities transaction, but most importantly, XRP wasn't a security. Brad and Chris weren't violating the law when they were selling XRP, and neither was Ripple 98% of the time. So essentially, there was only one circumstance in Ripple selling XRP that constituted a securities transaction. So overall, this is a massive win because finally, for the first time in a very long time, this thing is over with. Now, Eleanor Tarrant confirmed everything I just said. No trial in April of next year, and this is really going mainstream right now with people like the Wall Street Journal picking up what just happened. So this is obviously very exciting. Major news organizations are picking up on this. I want to show you what Brad and Stuart Alderati are saying because I think they had some very powerful statements, but I want to quickly outline the bad thing that could happen from this. Now, personally, I don't think it's really bad, but it's something I think you guys should all know. The SEC can still appeal this entire case. I know that sounds crazy, but the SEC has the right to actually appeal this case to the Second Circuit. They had to wait until the entire case was over. So by dismissing the charges against Brad and Chris, now the case is over, so now they can appeal the entire thing. Now, if the SEC was to do this, there is no doubt in my mind they would lose. The SEC cannot bring new evidence to this case, and they have no evidence of anyone doing anything wrong. The SEC assembled extremely poor evidence. They didn't really prove anything in this entire case. And I think we can all agree, we watched this case very closely. We didn't see a single thing that made us concerned about Ripple the company, Brad Garlinghouse, or Chris Larson. So if the SEC does bring this thing to appeal, I think there's nothing to worry about. I think it's just a delay before we win one final time. But honestly, I'm not so sure the SEC would do this. At this point, the only reason the SEC would do that would be to punish Ripple, to drag them through the mud just one last time. But if that was really the SEC's goal, they would have just taken this thing to trial. If it was really just to punish Ripple and drag them through the mud, they would have prolonged this entire thing. And trial was going to take a year and a half. So clearly the SEC's main objective isn't just to make this last as long as possible. They actually are trying to clean some things up. They actually understood that their case didn't make any sense. They actually understood that they were going to lose the remaining parts of this case, and it was starting to be a really bad look for the agency. That's why they didn't take Brad and Chris to trial. So is the SEC just going to appeal this to take it to the Second Circuit just to spite Ripple, Brad, and Chris? Guys, while it is something I think they would do, I'm not sure if they're in the position to do it now. The SEC just lost really, really big. They're losing credibility fast, and Ripple's not the company they want to go up against. Ripple has been kicking their butt every step of the way, and it's just not a fight the SEC can really take. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I will give you a positive look on the appeal. If the SEC is going to appeal this case in the next couple weeks, guys, they would have done it anyway at the end of trial. So whether we get the appeal now or we get the appeal in a year and a half from now, personally, I would rather have it now and just get it out of the way. I'm just not sure we're actually going to see it. One last note before we get into what Stuart Alderati and Brad actually had to say about this, and that's the fact that Ripple and the SEC actually had to agree on dismissing these charges against Brad and Chris. Now, this is really interesting because it could be possible that when the SEC went to Ripple and said, okay, we need to dismiss these charges against you and Chris because we're not going to win this case. It's a disaster for the agency. We just need to get out of this. It's very possible Ripple could have said, only if you promise not to appeal the case to the Second Circuit. That is something that could have happened because Ripple obviously had some power in being a party that also had to agree to dismiss the case against Brad and Chris. You need to understand, Ripple knows they're going to win every part of this case going forward, and they knew Brad and Chris were going to win. It was probably barely even a worry for them. So they were kind of giving something to the SEC by letting the SEC get out of this. Is it possible Ripple got something in return, like the SEC agreeing not to appeal the entire case to the Second Circuit? Personally, I think that is possible, but we're just going to have to see how things shake out. Overall, my opinion is, for the first time in 3 years, this case is officially over. We don't need to worry about it anymore. The SEC lost on every single front. They never came close to proving anything actually detrimental to Ripple or XRP. So I just think this is absolutely fantastic. And regardless of whatever shenanigans the SEC has up their sleeve going forward, what we learned is the SEC is all bark and no bite. They don't actually do anything. They drag us through the mud, they make us wait, but they never actually bring anything substantial to the table. So I'm not worried about an appeal because I know they'll lose. And for me, getting rid of trial, getting rid of a year and a half we would have had to go through of just more of this nonsense is a good thing and just gets us to our end goal faster of Ripple being able to move their business inside the United States and dominate the financial system with their space age technology. Now, I want to finish this video off and show you what Stuart Alderati and Brad actually had to say about this because they had some pretty charged statements that I think you guys are really going to want to hear. Stuart Alderati said, the SEC made a serious mistake going after Brad and Chris personally, and now they've capitulated, dismissing all charges against our executives. This is not a settlement. This is a surrender by the SEC. So great statement by Stuart Alderati right there, and I want to read you what Brad had to say. He said, today was an even better day. Ripple 3, SEC 0. In all seriousness, Chris and I, in a case involving no claims of fraud or misrepresentation, were targeted by the SEC in a ruthless attempt to personally ruin us and the company so many have worked hard to build over a decade. The SEC repeatedly kept its eye off the ball while secretly meeting with the likes of Sam Bankman-Fried, failing again and again to protect U.S. consumers and businesses. How many millions of taxpayer dollars were wasted? Feels good to be finally vindicated. And the one thing I'll say to that is I cannot believe that when this case was dropped against Ripple, Brad, and Chris, there was actually people in the cryptocurrency community cheering on the SEC. It's an absolute embarrassment. I will never forget who those people are. And guys, today just proves that once again, for the third time in a row, it feels like the millionth time in a row, the XRP community has been right from the start. We nailed this thing. We knew the SEC brought bogus charges. We knew XRP was going to end up on the right side of this. And we knew Ripple was a responsible company looking to change the world in a positive way and was not going to end up on the wrong side of the law. Guys, today should prove to all of you that we are one of the smartest communities out there by far. No one comes close to us. When everyone doubted us, when everyone said we were never going to win this case, XRP is some shit coin, it's never going to make it through this, we stood up to them. told them they were wrong, and stuck with our conviction through this entire thing. Now we are finally vindicated. The SEC's case was so bad, they essentially had to give up on it. Now they have to tie up some loose ends, and outside of some crazy appeal by the SEC, which hopefully we don't see, guys, this case is over, and Ripple can now really start working on building their business in the United States as the only cryptocurrency company with clarity and with a digital asset that is pronounced by the courts not to be a security. Guys, this is a massive day for all of us. It's a massive day for Ripple. It's a massive day for XRP. And it's a massive day for Brad and Chris. I'm super excited to make this video. Obviously, this is something we have been waiting on forever. So I hope everyone can do a little celebration tonight. Be happy that we were right again, because guys, even though it's just us in this tiny community getting to pat ourselves on the back, one day it's not going to be this small. One day you're going to have everyone telling you, hey, do you know about Ripple? You know about XRP? Guys, we were here since day one, and I think we're going to look back at these days one day and be extremely proud of ourselves. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does mean so much. And for now, Mickle out.